Hello, Professor. For my documentary review, I decided to do the PBS special on Essential Park 5. This was released in 2012 and directed by Ken Burns. The picture of this cover is an updated picture of Central Park, which is located in the center of New York City in the state of New York. The first slide, documentary summary. I'll be covering a summary of the hour and 15-minute documentary without reading everything I put on this slide, just to give a little different information than what you can read on your own. On the bottom of this slide, I also have the link to the PBS special. For me, since I'm in the Middle East deployed right now, it wouldn't let me view PBS from out here. Um, but I was able to watch it on YouTube, and it was an hour and 50-minute documentary that then 6 years later covered more of the case. But for the assignment, I just did the original PBS film, which on the picture on the right shows the Central Park 5 cover art for the documentary, as well as a picture of the five gentlemen underneath it. The Central Park 5 documentary explores the case of five Harlem teenagers who were wrongfully convicted of a brutal assault and the raping of a white female jogger in Central Park in 1989. The documentary also examines the racial tensions and media frenzy surrounding the case. These five teenagers from Harlem grew up knowing of each other, but not specifically knowing each other, having strong relationships. One night in 1989, the five teenagers known as Antoine McCrae, Kevin Richardson, Yusuf Salam, Raymond Santana, and Corey Wise were coerced into giving false confessions. That night, them and 25 other people, it was said that there was 33 in total, were in Harlem, and they were going around the park assaulting people and robbing people. It said that these five were just there, but when everything happened, they decided to leave and go back to the train and go home. Train slash subway. Sorry about that. Um, on the way back, two of them were later arrested and chased through the park and brutally hit with police officers' helmets. And they were told that they were going to be arrested. After getting to the police station, they called their parents and put them in for interrogation. They got arrested at 9 p.m. Hours later at 2 a.m., two joggers running through Central Park found the jogger who had been raped that night and called the police. The police then blamed the Central Park Five for this raping, even though they had been arrested before the body was even found and they had no idea what they were talking about. They were coerced into giving false confessions, like I said, because of the police, and they were then convicted based on these confessions and other circumstantial evidence. The documentary highlights the lack of physical evidence linking the teenagers to the crime, while also shedding light on how the media portrayed the case, fueling public outrage and bias against the accused, including Donald Trump, which I will get into in a further slide. The documentary includes interviews with the Central Park Five, their families, and legal experts and media officials who then talk about the case years later in 2012 when this was filmed. Yeah. My personal reactions were pretty similar to my opinion that I already had that I'll speak later on. But it documentary definitely raised important questions about race, class, and justice in America. The film also reveals the eventual exoneration of the Central Park Five after another man confesses to the crime. So after they were sentenced between 6 to 15 years, 13 years later, they caught a man in New York City who was a serial rapist and murderer, and he came clean about it, and he made a joke and a fool of the New York police and media for allowing five men to be convicted for their skin color when DNA didn't even match it. This also caused lots of protests and riots when, in 2002, they caught this man who confessed to the raping of the white female jogger. Yeah. Sorry about that. I cannot emphasize through how the chronological order that this film was directed makes the documentary an emotional roller coaster. The use of live interviews and pictures from the case make it clear to me, the audience, that even though this happened decades ago, it is irreversible. Later on, they had sued a civil service lawsuit against the state of New York and won over $40 million, and then later awarded 3.9 million. But it does not amount for being in jail for the longest somebody served was 13 years before they were free. So this money just doesn't make up for the racial injustice that got them arrested, in my opinion. I think the documentary was really well put together. Even like the first 10 minutes just show what New York City was like back then. Confessions of police officers saying if they had more bullets, they would have shot more black people. It's just really crazy to hear a lot of these people's testimony and see how these bias and stereotypes led to five teenagers losing most of their young adulthood life. Documentary quotes that stuck out to me was Corey Wise, who was the youngest, said, "They said if I was there and if I went along with it, that I would go home. And that's all I wanted. That's all I wanted was to go home." The police officers gave them names of other people that they didn't know and could leave. They basically all pinpointed each other, which led to the police saying that all five were together when it happened. Another quote from a Central Park 5 member said, "At that point, I told myself, I just want to go home." During this scene, he was reliving what it was like when he was in the interrogation room for over 24 hours straight, where they didn't have a lawyer. And after seeing his parents, he said he'd do anything to go home. Kevin Richardson, another member of the Central Park Five's mother, quoted here, said, "I know you've seen things, maybe had to do things, defend yourself, survive, whatever might have happened. But in the end, you have the same heart." That was her telling him that she knew he wasn't guilty and that she still loved him. As far as pictures on the right, this is a pond or lake. Yeah, a pond in Central Park that was near where the joggers actually found the woman at 2 to 3 a.m. and called the police to report her that she was unconscious and she had actually lost 85% of the blood in her body. And then this top picture represents the five of them free in New York City when they were exonerated. And the bottom picture is from Corey Wise. It's from the documentary on Netflix, When They See Us. So it wasn't from this documentary, but I thought it was a powerful picture of them pointing at him in the interrogation room, telling him to take the fall for something that he hadn't done. Reflection on perspective. Again, the picture of them in the courtroom from a different angle, as well as them being escorted years later to the court when they were suing for the 40 million. Um, my perspective, sorry, it definitely validated points that I already had seen in America growing up, how I did and where I did. And it raises important questions about race, class, and justice in America. It also highlights the long-lasting efforts of the wrongful convictions on the lives of the Central Park Five. This documentary calls attention to the needs for criminal justice reform and the importance of protecting the rights of all individuals. It serves as a powerful reminder of the consequences of rushed judgment and the importance of seeking truth and justice. Overall, I thought this was a very well executed document that covers the reality of racial biasm and the dangers in media that we can see today. And thank you for your time. Side note, I wasn't sure if we had to show our face in it. It just said audio. So I only did an audio which worked for me better just because where I am military wise, I'm not allowed to use any type of camera.